The morning sun cast long shadows across Osan Air Base when Lieutenant Park Jin-ho took his first sip of coffee. It would be his last peaceful moment for a very long time. The cup was still warm in his hands when the sky went dark. 200 alien ships descended like falling stars, but these stars brought death instead of wishes. The Kethver hegemony had finally come to collect what they believed was rightfully theirs, another primitive world to strip and harvest, in the underground bunker beneath Seoul. Commander Kong Mira stared at her radar screen in disbelief. Red dots filled the display like a rash spreading across the world. Sir, they're hitting every major military base at once. Tokyo is under attack. Beijing is burning. Delhi has gone silent. General Kim Tae-ho set down his own coffee cup with steady hands. He had been expecting this day for months, ever since the first alien probes had been detected at the edge of the solar system. So they think we'll just give up and bow down to them, he said quietly. His fingers found the red phone that would wake up every military unit on Earth. They're about to learn something new about humans. The alien warships moved, with perfect formation across the morning sky. Their weapons fired with surgical precision, cutting through military bases like a hot knife through butter. The plasma beams turned concrete into dust and steel into vapor. In 15 minutes, they had destroyed more military hardware than had been lost in all of World War II. The Kethver had studied Earth for months before the invasion. Their scientists had written detailed reports about the primitive bipeds who lived there. Basic nuclear weapons. Simple computers. Governments that could barely work together. It should have been an easy conquest, like all the others. But they had made one critical mistake. They had studied human technology and human governments. They had never studied human nature. Staff Sergeant Lee Dong-ail was pinned under a piece of concrete when the alien fighter crashed 50 meters from his position. The Kunzan Air Base was in ruins around him, flames reaching toward the morning sky. A normal person might have stayed hidden, waiting for rescue or death. Dong-hae was not a normal person. He was a combat engineer, and the smoking alien wreckage was the most interesting puzzle he had ever seen. He crawled out from under the debris, ignoring the pain in his ribs. The alien ship was cracked open like an egg, its hull split by the impact. Strange blue light pulsed from inside. Any sane person would have run away. Dong-hae grabbed a crowbar from the ruins of a maintenance shed and went to take a closer look. The alien technology was unlike anything he had ever seen. But technology was technology. There were power sources, control systems, and weapons. The basic principles had to be the same. Within minutes, he had identified what looked like a battery pack, glowing with the same blue light. Within an hour, he had it connected to a field radio with copper wire and pure determination. "Base, this is Dong-hae," he said into the radio, not really expecting an answer. The radio crackled to life with perfect clarity. "You're not going to believe this, but I think I just figured out how their batteries work. And sir, these things put out about 10 times more power than anything we've got." Across the planet, the same scene played out in a dozen different languages. A mechanic in Detroit figured out how to jumpstart alien engines with car batteries. A farmer in Kansas discovered that alien armor had a fatal weakness to his old ham radio. A teenager in Mumbai learned that alien computers used the same basic logic as human ones, just faster. The Kethver had expected panic. They had expected governments to surrender and populations to flee in terror. Instead, they got millions of humans doing what humans do best, taking things apart to see how they work. In São Paulo, a street mechanic named Carlos was already welding alien metal to human weapons. In London, a physics professor was teaching her students how to reverse alien shield generators. In Cairo, a bomb disposal expert was learning that alien explosives were surprisingly stable and surprisingly powerful. The alien ground forces landed, expecting to find a broken, terrified population ready for slavery. Instead, they found humans, who had spent the last 12 hours studying alien technology and were eager to field test their new knowledge. The first improvised human counterattack came just after sunset in Busan. A team of South Korean Marines had spent the day learning how alien plasma rifles worked. They had made some improvements, better cooling systems, larger power cells, and firing modes that the original designers had never imagined. The alien patrol never knew what hit them. The humans had taken alien weapons and made them better. It was a pattern that would repeat across every continent and every battlefield. The HFY had come to harvest a primitive world. Instead, they had given humanity its first real look at advanced technology, and humanity was a very fast learner. The invasion was only 12 hours old, but the war had already begun to turn in a direction the aliens had never imagined possible. They had wanted to conquer Earth. Instead, they had just made humanity very, very angry. The underground tunnels beneath Seoul had become a different world. Captain Choi Hun-woo pressed himself against the cold concrete wall, watching alien soldiers march past through his makeshift night vision scope. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began, and the aliens thought they owned the city above. They had no idea what was happening below their feet. "Look at them," he whispered to his team, pointing at the alien patrol. "Same route every time, same speed, same formation. They march like robots." Private Yoon Ji-soo crouched beside him, her weapon ready. The rifle looked strange. It had the familiar shape of a human M4, but blue alien energy coursed through modified components that she had welded into place herself. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about fighting in these tunnels during the war," she said quietly. "She always said the enemy might be stronger, but we know every inch of our home. That makes us dangerous." The alien patrol passed overhead, their heavy boots echoing through the tunnel's ceiling. They controlled the streets, the buildings, and the sky, but they had never bothered to learn about the maze of tunnels, sewers, and maintenance shafts that ran beneath every major city on Earth. To them, underground meant buried and forgotten. To the humans, it meant invisible highways that could move fighters and supplies anywhere in the city without being seen. 3 levels down, in what used to be a shopping center, engineer Song Minji was making a discovery that would change the war. She had been studying pieces of alien armor for days, running tests with equipment salvaged from destroyed electronics stores. The alien metal was incredibly strong, but everything had a weakness if you knew how to look for it. The molecular structure vibrates at a specific frequency, she explained to the crowd of resistance fighters gathered around her workbench. She held up a small device that looked like a radio speaker wrapped in alien circuitry. "I found the exact frequency by accident when I was trying to fix an old sound system. Watch this." She placed a piece of alien armor on the table and activated her device. A low humming sound filled the air, and the armor began to shake. Within seconds, the supposedly indestructible metal simply fell apart, crumbling like old concrete. "One sonic pulse, and their battlesuits just dissolve," she said with a grin. "It's like they never thought anyone would use sound as a weapon. They build everything to resist bullets and energy beams, but they never considered music." The crowd erupted in excited whispers. Within hours, every resistance cell in the city would know how to build these sonic weapons, using parts from any electronics stored above ground. The aliens were beginning to realize they had a problem. HFY Field Commander Thexful stood in what used to be the South Korean government building, reading reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare. His species had conquered 47 worlds using the same basic strategy: destroy the military, occupy the cities, and wait for the population to surrender. It had worked every time. "Sir, we lost another patrol last night," his aide reported. "That makes 15 this week. They were found with their armor destroyed and their weapons missing." Thexval studied the tactical display showing Seoul, red. Dots marked every area where his forces had been attacked. The pattern made no sense. The attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. His troops would secure a building, only to find it empty the next day, with all the useful equipment gone. Supply convoys would disappear between checkpoints. Patrols would vanish without sending a single distress signal. "These humans don't fight like the others," he said to his aide. "When we conquered the Zephyrians, they gathered their armies for one great battle. When we took the Meridian colonies, they surrendered after we destroyed their capital. But these creatures, they just melt away when we attack, then strike back when we least expect it." The truth was even worse than he realized. Every time his forces engaged the humans learned something new. They studied alien weapons, alien tactics, and alien weaknesses. Then they shared that knowledge through their underground network faster than his intelligence officers could track it. In the tunnels beneath Busan, resistance fighters were learning to use alien communication devices to listen in on military frequencies. In the sewers under Tokyo, engineers were building hybrid weapons that combined human creativity with alien power sources. In the subway systems of New York, hackers were breaking alien computer codes and turning their own surveillance systems against them. The aliens had made a critical error. They had assumed that controlling the surface meant controlling the planet. But humans had been building underground networks for thousands of years. Every city had its hidden places, its forgotten passages, and its secret routes. The resistance had turned the entire underground infrastructure of human civilization into a single massive base of operations. "Request immediate reinforcements from the fleet," Vexvel transmitted to his superiors. "These creatures learn from every engagement. Every patrol we lose makes them stronger. Every weapon they capture makes them more dangerous. We are not fighting primitives anymore. We are fighting an enemy that adapts faster than we can respond." He paused, looking out at the city that appeared so quiet and controlled from his high window. Somewhere beneath his feet, in tunnels he couldn't see, and passages he didn't know existed, humanity was planning its next move, and for the first time in his military career, Vexville was afraid. The old subway car had been transformed into something that looked like a mix between a computer lab and a radio station. Dr. Han Suyang sat surrounded by screens, showing alien text, her fingers dancing across a keyboard that was built from parts of 6 different computers. At only 19 years old, she had become the most important person in the human resistance. She was the girl who could speak to aliens. "Listen to this," she said to the group of military officers crowded around her workstation. Alien voices crackled through the speakers, their harsh language filling the underground space. "They change their radio frequencies every 4 hours, but they're not as smart as they think. They use prime numbers for their codes. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. It's like a mathematical pattern that repeats." General Kim leaned closer to the screen. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Su Yang smiled and switched to another channel. More alien voices, but this time she translated as they spoke. "The commander is complaining about supply shortages. They're running low on energy cells for their weapons. And listen to this part. They're asking for permission to retreat from the Busan sector." Retreat. The general's eyebrows shot up. 6 months ago, the aliens had seemed unstoppable. Now, they were talking about running away. "Already done," Su Yang said, pulling up another screen filled with intercepted alien messages. "We've been listening to their battle plans for 3 weeks now. Every move they make, every attack they plan, we know about it before their own soldiers do. And the best part, they have no idea we're listening." Above ground, the war looked very different than it had 6 months earlier. Master Sergeant Lim Yeho moved through the ruined streets of Idawan with his squad, but they were no longer hiding from alien patrols. Now the aliens were hiding from them. His weapon looked like nothing that had ever existed before the invasion. It started as an alien energy rifle, but human engineers had added cooling fans, extra power cells, and firing modes that could punch through alien armor like paper. Where the aliens had built elegant, simple weapons, humans had made them bigger, louder, and more dangerous. Movement, whispered Corporal Bei Sujin, holding up a device that looked like a handheld computer screen. 2 floors up, 3 aliens, moving toward the stairwell. The scanner in her hands had once been an alien medical device, designed to check the health of wounded soldiers. Human doctors had figured out how to turn it into a motion detector that could see through walls and track targets from 3 times the original range. It was typical human engineering. Take something that works and make it work better. Yeho signaled to his team with hand gestures they had learned from watching alien patrol footage. The aliens had taught humans their own tactics, and now those tactics were being used against them. Sujin, take the back exit. Minsu, cover the stairs. We'll box them in like they taught us. The night had become the humans' ally. For the first 6 months of the invasion, alien night vision technology had given them a huge advantage. Now every human fighter carried night vision scopes built from alien components, but modified to see further and clearer than the originals. The aliens had created their own worst enemy by leaving their technology where humans could find it. Every alien patrol that disappeared taught the resistance something new. How alien armor was weak at the joints. How their energy weapons overheated after sustained fire. How their communication systems could be jammed with the right frequency. Most importantly, how alien soldiers panicked when separated from their units. The humans had learned to think like their enemy, but the aliens had never learned to think like humans. That was becoming their fatal mistake. Deep underground, in hidden factories built in subway tunnels and old mine shafts, human engineers worked around the clock building weapons that would have seemed impossible before the invasion. They took alien power sources and connected them to human-designed firing systems. They took alien armor and added human-designed shock absorbers and cooling systems. They took alien computers and programmed them with human logic. Look at this beauty, said engineer Park Min-ho, holding up a rifle that glowed with blue alien energy but was shaped like a familiar human weapon. Alien power core, human targeting system, and a firing rate that's double what the original could. Do the aliens build their guns to be efficient? We built ours to win fights. The weapons coming out of the underground factories were no longer copies of alien technology. They were improvements on it. Human creativity had taken alien science and made it better, faster, and more deadly. Where aliens had built tools for conquest, humans had built tools for survival. In command centers around the world, resistance leaders watched the tide of war slowly turning. The aliens still controlled major cities and military bases, but they were no longer expanding their territory. Instead, they were consolidating their forces, pulling back from areas they could no longer hold. They're scared, General Kim said, watching the tactical displays in the underground command center. For the first time since this war started, they're afraid of us. The aliens had come to Earth expecting to fight primitive humans with basic technology. Instead, they had created an enemy that learned from every mistake, adapted to every challenge, and improved on every piece of technology they encountered. The hunters were slowly becoming the hunted. 1 year had passed since the aliens first darkened Earth's skies. The Kethver had planned for a 3-week conquest, maybe a month if the humans proved stubborn. They never imagined they would still be fighting after 12 months, and they certainly never imagined they would be losing. Flight Lieutenant Park Sun-ho climbed into the cockpit of his fighter, running his hands over controls that looked alien but responded to human touch. The ship had started life as a Kethver interceptor, sleek and efficient like everything the aliens built. Now it was something entirely different. Human engineers had ripped out the original systems and rebuilt them from the ground up. Bravo, Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader, he said into his headset, watching 11 other fighters power up around him. Remember what we learned in training. These ships were designed for pilots who fly in perfect formation and follow the manual. We're not those pilots. The hangar doors opened, revealing the morning sky above Seoul. The 12 fighters rose from their hidden bunker carved deep into the mountains. From the outside, they still looked like alien ships. Inside, they were pure human creativity, where the aliens had installed basic armor. Humans had added layers of protection that could stop direct hits from enemy weapons. Where the aliens had mounted standard guns, humans had installed weapons that fired twice as fast and hit 3 times harder. Most importantly, the flight controls had been completely redesigned. Alien pilots flew like they were following a textbook, making predictable movements and staying in neat formations. Human pilots flew like they were playing a video game in 3 dimensions, using every trick they had learned from a lifetime of action movies and fighter simulations. High above Earth's atmosphere, Kethber Fleet Commander Vorthak stared at his tactical screen in disbelief. The human fighters were doing things that should have been impossible. They dove straight down when military doctrine said they should climb for altitude. They broke apart from their formation to attack from 6 different directions at once. They coordinated their strikes with split-second timing that would have required months of training for his own pilots. "Sir, we just lost another destroyer," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. The humans hit it from 3 angles simultaneously while it was turning to retreat. "How are they doing this?" Vorthak asked, watching the red dots on his screen that represented human fighters. They moved like a swarm of angry insects, striking fast and disappearing before his ships could respond. "Their technology is based on our designs. They shouldn't be able to outfly us. They're not following the rules of space combat," his officer replied. "They're making up new rules as they go." It was true. Every principle of military flight that the Kethver had developed over centuries of warfare was being thrown out the window by human pilots who treated space like an ocean and their ships like submarines. They attacked from below, dove through debris fields that should have destroyed them, and used the gravity of planets to slingshot themselves into impossible attack angles. On the ground, the war was going just as badly for the aliens. Colonel Kyungmin stood in what had been a shopping mall 6 months earlier, now converted into a military command center filled with screens showing the battle across the Korean peninsula. Her forces were using captured alien vehicles, but like everything else humans touched, they had been completely rebuilt, where alien tanks had been designed to move steadily across open ground. Human engineers had added rocket boosters that let them jump over obstacles. Where alien artillery had been built to fire accurately at long range, humans had modified them to rapid fire at close range. Every piece of alien equipment had been turned into something faster, stronger, and more aggressive than the original design. "Colonel, we've taken the Incheon complex," reported Major Nohijin over the radio. "The aliens abandoned their positions and are falling back toward their space elevators. They're not even trying to fight us anymore." Oh Kungmin smiled grimly. As she watched the tactical display, red arrows showed alien forces retreating all along the front lines. For the first time since the invasion began, it was the aliens who were running away and the humans who were advancing. The Kethver had made a fundamental error in understanding their enemy. They had assumed that because humans used simpler technology, they were simpler beings. They thought in terms of efficient conquest, logical tactics, and predictable responses. They had built their entire military around the idea that warfare was a science with rules that everyone followed. Humans had thrown out the rule book. They fought like every battle was a life or death struggle, because for them, it was. They used tactics that made no sense according to military textbooks, because they had never read those textbooks. They modified their weapons and vehicles in ways that violated engineering principles, because they didn't care about principles when their planet was at stake. Above and below, in space and on the ground, the pattern was the same. The Kethver had come to Earth as hunters, expecting to easily capture their prey. Instead, they had taught their prey how to hunt. Now, the aliens found themselves being stalked through their own bases, shot down by their own technology. and defeated by an enemy that refused to follow any rules except one: win at any cost. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning that humans were very good at hunting. The bridge of the HFY flagship had become a place of whispered conversations and nervous glances. Fleet Commander Vorthak stood at the main viewing window, watching the last of his evacuation ships struggle to escape Earth's gravity. What had once been the greatest invasion force in HFY history was now a broken collection of damaged vessels, limping away from a planet they had failed to conquer. "Sir, the humans are tracking our jump signatures," his navigation officer said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time we prepare to make a faster-than-light jump, they seem to know exactly where we're going. They're following our escape routes." Vorthak closed his eyes. The humans had learned everything, not just how to use alien technology, but how to improve it. Not just how to fight alien tactics, but how to predict them. In 18 months, they had gone from a primitive species to a civilization that could outthink, outfight, and outbuild their former conquerors. Below them, Earth glowed with the light of thousands of fires, but these were not the fires of destruction that the HFY had planned to see. These were the flames of human industry working day and night. Factories that had once built cars now built spaceships. Mines that had once produced iron now extracted alien metals. Entire cities had been converted into massive construction projects, all focused on one goal: building humanity's first real space fleet. Colonel Kim Woojin stood in what had been the aliens' primary command center just 2 years earlier. The massive space station orbiting Earth had been designed as a coordination hub for planetary conquest. Now it was humanity's first orbital shipyard, crawling with human workers who swarmed over captured alien vessels like ants rebuilding a nest. Through the thick windows, he could see the skeleton of what would become humanity's first home-built starship. It was enormous, easily twice the size of the largest HFY cruiser, and bristling with weapons that combined human creativity with alien power sources. Every line of the ship spoke of aggressive intent and brutal efficiency. "Dr. Sung, how much longer until our first ship is ready for combat?" he asked the chief engineer. Dr. Sung Yunha looked up from her workstation, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship designs that would have given alien engineers nightmares. The blueprints showed vessels that were part human engineering, part alien science, and entirely designed for war. "The Sol-class heavy cruiser will be ready for space trials in 3 months, she said with a smile that held no warmth. "After that, we can start building them faster. And after that, ... She paused, looking out at the stars. "After that, we start paying some visits to our former guests." The ship designs on her screens were terrifying in their simplicity. Where alien vessels were elegant and efficient, human ships were built like flying fortresses. Where aliens had installed the minimum armor needed for protection, humans had added layers upon layers of defensive systems. Where aliens had mounted weapons for precision strikes, humans had installed guns designed to obliterate everything in front of them, in orbit around Earth. The last HFY transport finally cleared the human defense grid. Vorthak walked to his communication station and activated the long-range transmitter. This message would reach every corner of the galaxy, warning every civilization about what humanity had become. "To all hegemony forces, to all member worlds, to every species in the galactic community," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Avoid the Sol system at all costs. The species that lives there does not fight like others we have encountered. They don't just fight to survive until they can surrender with honor. They fight to win completely, and they learn from every mistake we make." He paused, looking back at Earth one last time. The planet that should have been a simple conquest had become the graveyard of his career and possibly his entire species' future. "We came to their world with superior technology, superior numbers, and superior tactics. We gave them space travel by leaving our ships where they could study them. We taught them our weaknesses by fighting them. We showed them the location of our worlds by broadcasting our communications where they could intercept them. The bridge was silent, except for the hum of failing life support systems. Half his crew was dead or wounded, and the other half knew they would likely be executed when they returned home. But the message had to be sent. They call themselves humans, Vorthak continued, and we have made them very angry. They are coming for us, and they will be flying ships built from our own technology, improved with their own innovations. Every world that has ever supported the hegemony should prepare for war. Because humanity does not forgive, and they do not forget. As the alien fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Earth continued its transformation. Construction, lights blazed around new orbital platforms. Shipyards expanded daily. Training centers prepared the first generation of human space pilots. Weapons factories worked around the clock, producing ammunition for guns that could crack planets. Humanity had been invaded by a superior force and had not just survived. They had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that turned every attack into a learning experience and every defeat into motivation for revenge. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same.